Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to, I believe, the third annual, maybe the second annual, I don't know, TWitWoW Awards for the year of 2015. Actually, now that I think about it, I think this is the third annual one because I'm pretty sure we did one in 2013 as well. So today we have 54 different awards to be distributed amongst the wrestling world. Just a warning, I know you probably already saw the timestamp, so you probably already know, but in case you haven't, this is going to be a really long video. Last year it was almost 3 hours, and I'm not expecting it to be significantly shorter this year. So, John, are you ready to begin the TWitWoW Awards 2015?
Yeah, let's get right into this, man. I'm ready.
Okay. All right. Now, to start things out, we always on TwitWow, our biggest thing is we like to get all of the negatives out of the way first so that the rest can be smooth sailing and all good stuff. So, to start things out, we have 9 negative awards that we're going to hand out, and then we have 45, I guess, positive awards that we're going to give. So, first one, worst match of the year. John, I want you to go first for this one.
All right, I'll get the ball rolling, guys. My worst match of the year is Paige versus Nikki Bella from Money in the Bank.
Wow.
I picked this award. Really, here's the thing. The match as a whole, I guess you really couldn't say wasn't necessarily terrible. What I hated about it was the whole story going into it, because here Paige was trying to rally locker room support against the Bellas. The Bellas were saying, we have it in with the authority, we're good with them, so nobody's going to do anything. And then you get to the Money in the Bank event. This was recently after Dusty Rhodes passed away. Paige dedicates the match to Dusty, and they have their match, and then, of course, and she loses. But the way she loses, the finish, because she ends up pinning Brie. Brie, though, takes the stuffing out of her bra to show that she wasn't Nikki.
And then
Paige
pulls her freaking pants down and almost shows her crotch just to show that she has those hip tattoos.
Exactly. Paige kicks her in response. The referee should have thrown the match out because of interference and everything else right there. But then Nikki clocks Paige with the unstoppable forearm and then the rack attack, and then Paige cries after the loss. Just to me, an absolute train wreck. I really didn't care too much for this story. Really didn't care for most of Nikki Bella's championship reign, to be fair, either.
I
And yeah, I
wonder,
really
is that maybe possibly a little bit of a premonition or a foreshadowing there for worst title reign of the year?
Potentially. I mean, we'll get to that when we get to it. But yeah, I just really did not care for this match. And honestly, I really didn't have any runners up. If I had even one match that was a close runner up, it may have been Brock Lesnar Undertaker from SummerSlam. But even that I didn't think was as bad as this match. So this really just easily got my worst match of the year for me personally.
Nice. Well, since you didn't really have any runner ups, I had one runner up. Actually, no, I had two runners up. My runner up matches for worst match of the year were John Cena versus Alberto Del Rio for the U.S. title from was that Hell in a Cell pay per view, I believe?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, because it was like 7 minutes and Cena lost clean to a super kick, and this is after having kicked out of everything everyone ever threw at him ever.
Yeah, I remember you really hated that.
And plus, that was also Del Rio's return, and we spent the entire live reactions just shitting on him as a person.
Yeah, that was legendary.
So that's a thing. My other runner up was actually, I don't even remember who all was involved. I think it was just Team Bella versus Team PCB in a 3-on-3 match after that Miz TV segment where everything was just disastrous and Miz was a misogynist and didn't get any kind of comeuppance for it whatsoever.
Right.
That match was a disaster, and that was also the match that the crowd was chanting boring, and then the Bella twins took to Twitter afterwards to basically give a tongue lashing to the crowd after in the Miz TV segment that happened just prior saying wins and losses don't matter. I mean, if you tell the crowd that, why the hell are they going to give a shit about the match you're in?
Exactly. Excellent point there.
So those are my runners up, but my number one worst match of the year from Triple Mania, man. I don't know if you saw this, but it was the Psycho Circus versus Los Villanos.
Oh God, that does sound awful. I haven't really cared for AAA much at all,
Well, it was just a
and
disaster, the Triple Mania thing is a little bit of a foreshadowing too for me. But like this whole match was probably what really kind of sent Triple Mania over the edge and gave it the horrible reputation that it has nowadays because of this one match. And obviously, the rest of the show was a disaster too, but this match really was kind of the kick in the nuts that you really needed to be like, oh my god, this show's terrible.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, it's funny that you bring up AAA because they didn't escape my list either, but we'll get to that later.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'll take your word for it, man, because I've just never really connected with that promotion at all from the little that we've watched.
Yeah.
And really, I don't
And
think
I
you
know
have
we
to
do
watch
have a
much.
lot of people, or at least 2 or 3 people, that in our comments ask us to watch AAA. And I've told a lot of people, even when they do ask, like, we don't have a problem with watching other promotions, but like that's if it's new and we haven't seen it before and we're interested, and then if we like it, we'll keep watching it. We tried AAA and we didn't like it, so we're not going to keep watching.
Exactly.
So that's kind of the same thing with TNA too. I feel like people say AAA is the WWE of Mexico. I don't think Mexico has a WWE. I think AAA is the TNA of Mexico.
Oh, damn. Yeah, man, I have to agree with you there. No, no contentions here, man.
Yeah. So next award, worst feud of the year. I'll go first for this one. We can kind of flip back and forth.
Okay.
Um, I'm just going to get straight to it. I don't think I have any really prominent runner-up candidates that I want to talk about. Randy Orton versus Sheamus for me.
Oh, okay. Interesting choice. Interesting
This
choice.
to me was just the feud that would never end. This is a feud that nobody wanted to see in the first place. There wasn't really any substance to the feud other than just these guys like fighting each other. And the matches were consistently so boring. And it seemed like these guys fought each other on every single show. One of them would come out and they'd be like, "Ooh, I wonder who he's facing," and you'd be like, "Sheamus," and I'd be like, "No, it can't be him. They're feuding. They're not going to fight each other again on Raw," and then they would.
Yeah, exactly. It just seemed like Orton and Sheamus were consistently in each other's crosshairs, just like wrestling each other on an eternal loop that
And
just
like I
really
said,
saw
there
no
was no
end.
substance to the feud either. Like there was no story whatsoever. It was just these guys hate each other. We don't even know why. They never even really talked about each other from what I remember.
Exactly. I think it may have all precipitated because in the build up to Money in the Bank, I think Sheamus tried attacking Orton, taking him out. And I think like that was kind of residual like after the pay per view, you know what I mean? But still,
Right.
that's very flimsy justification for a
And
feud.
plus, I mean, even if that is the case, the feud didn't need to last the 3 months that it lasted.
No, no, certainly not. I think that's an excellent choice when you really consider everything. And really, what I like about your choice and what makes it kind of weird, but I think in a good way, is that like these two guys as individuals, I think are solid workers. You know, it's just together they really are like oil and water. It just doesn't work, and yet WWE tries to fit the square peg into the round hole with these two.
Right.
So
And you
I
know
just never
what?
got it.
I will toss in a runner up here just because I know that this is not your feud of the year, so I know I'm not spoiling anything. And we give Lucha Underground all the credit in the world, and they deserve all the praise in the world. But when they get something wrong, I think we need to point that out too. And in this case, it's not even necessarily them getting it wrong. It's just something happened that hurt their story, and they changed it in a way that I didn't like. Blue Demon versus Tejano was not a good feud.
No, no, and you know what the
And the
thing is?
reason that it ended up being that is because Chavo got hurt, so they tossed Blue Demon in there to beat Tejano's opponent. And the way that they kind of wrote their way around Chavo's injury was good, but the feud itself was not, and the match that ended the feud was not.
I think what really hurt them was a like you said, Chavo getting hurt, and I think subsequently the pacing was just completely off for
Yeah,
me, which is
because
what left a bad taste in my
Tejano
mouth.
was such a fresh baby face, and then we had Blue Demon turning heel literally to start the feud, and it just felt very sudden.
And
Yeah,
remember that was what I even said on I think it was a Lucha Rewatch series. I
yeah,
brought that up when we had a
yep,
more in-depth discussion about it. No,
yep,
I think pacing. I think that's a good runner-up, and I'm glad you didn't give it to it because again, I don't really think it was a creative thing. It was just the
right.
pacing was totally
Yeah, and
off.
that's why it was only a runner up because it wasn't just the pacing and this kind of stuff, but it was also like they only did that feud out of necessity because Chavo got hurt.
Right, exactly.
Because otherwise it would have been Chavo versus Tejano.
Right, which I think actually could have actually been quite entertaining. I hope
Right,
maybe we get that the second season. Maybe we round that out.
definitely a
But
possibility.
yeah. But I guess to take control here, my worst feud of the year, really easy one for me: Triple H and Sting.
Yeah,
It's Sting.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
it's fucking Sting.
Like you
Like,
can't have him win a single match, really.
dude, it boggles my mind to
Wasn't
this
didn't he
day.
have one win all year and it was against Big Show?
I think so, and I think that was by DQ. No, you know what? I think that was like technically a DQ win, and then like it broke down because John Cena got involved, and he was feuding with somebody at the time. I think Rollins or somebody.
And
Because
then we
yeah, I
had the
think that was
tag
leading up
team
to that
match that
chance.
Sting and Cena won.
Yeah, exactly. Because Rollins tapped out to the Scorpion Deathlock.
That's right.
Uh, so yeah, I guess two matches. It boggles the mind how much they mishandled the idea that you finally acquired Sting. Truly, I mean, I feel like words like legend and icon get overused, even by me. I mean, I include myself in that. But with Sting, you couldn't get any more appropriate. And you have him in this feud, which I actually like the tone, like the initial setup. He screws the authority out of power,
Yep.
being that kind of guy that oversees justice and everything. I'm not going to
That,
outright
for
call him
what
a
it's worth, that did happen in 2014, but I definitely see where you're going with this.
right. I mean, laying the groundwork to go into
Yeah.
what they would really do in 2015. But then 2015, when we're talking about that handling,
And
it
I
was
agree with you
all
too that 2015 is when it kind of jumped the shark, because in 2014 it was all about Sting versus the Authority, and then 2015 it became, for literally no reason, and even Sting tried to talk about how it wasn't about this, WWE versus WCW.
exactly. I cannot for the life of me. I mean, I'm sure we think Vince McMahon, this, that, and the other,
Oh
but
yeah.
I really cannot conceive like how you could have this fixation. This is about Sting, not about the company he used to work for, and
15
just the
years
idea that
ago.
exactly. Just the idea that they made that the story. And then honestly, here's the thing, guys. Now that I've really had time to process the WrestleMania match, I hated it. I hated everything about it.
Yeah.
I know on live reactions, me and Ashton had a good time, but that's because it's
We
live
were
reactions.
laughing
And if
at
anybody,
it.
we were laughing at it. If there was anything good, it was just how bad it was. It got
Yeah.
into that comical territory.
And the
You got,
crazy thing too, John, is that I've actually heard people say that that was the match of the year.
and see, like, that makes me want to vomit. I mean,
Honestly,
all
I think it might have even been either Brian Alvarez or Dave Meltzer on the Wrestling Observer that said that.
all due respect to those guys, that just makes me want to vomit because I can't even see it. I can't. And really, you know what? I think I could have forgiven it, but just very slightly forgiven it if not a half hour later, maybe less, maybe a little bit more, Triple H didn't come out in a suit and kind of brag about his victory after he already shook Sting's hand and then go on to have that segment with The Rock and Ronda Rousey with
Yep.
Stephanie. Like, everything about that, I
And why
wanted
in the
to
world would the NWO of all people come out to help Sting when two of those three guys are part of Triple H's clique, and Sting and the NWO were in constant feuds in WCW?
exactly. So if you were a diehard WCW fan, that had to get your blood boiling because way to hijack history for your own purposes.
Yep.
Just everything about this was a disaster to me. And of course, I'm gonna be one of those guys. I didn't like that Triple H went over. I get why he did, but I feel like again, it's Sting. You
Yeah,
bring
I
him
like
in.
my thing too is that like you say you get why he did, and I guess that if you want to chalk that up to like paying dues, I can understand that. But at Sting's age and knowing now, especially what we know now, the fact that he's probably not going to wrestle again anymore because of his injuries, that was a terrible decision on their part.
Yeah, I mean, you could have given the guy, a real WrestleMania moment triumphing over Triple H. It also didn't help matters, too, even though Sting wasn't directly involved with this, that the Authority was back in power at this time. So, way to render Sting's, actions completely moot. Like, it's another thing I wanted to mention, too. Like, just everything about this that could have been wonderful, I feel like they just blew it up and just didn't give a single crap about it. I'm actually glad this feud is over. I feel terrible for Sting and the injuries he's suffering, but I'll be quite candid. I'm almost glad he's done with WWE. I wish obviously it would have been in a better way and not under these particular set of circumstances because that company has been treating him like crap. No wonder it took him so long to sign. Good lord, this feud was horrible.
All right, I dig it. Let's move on to our worst storyline of the year. And John, there were four people involved in this, and I think you and I agreed. So let's just go back and forth. I'll start Rusev,
Lana,
Ziggler.
Summer.
Yeah, this was hands down the worst storyline of the year in any company that we pay attention to. Just terrible.
Yeah,
Everything about it was awful.
you know what you get, folks, when you put those four names together? I'll tell you, not enough aspirin. Good lord, the
This is the
headache.
only feud in recent memory that made everybody in it look worse for having been in it.
Exactly. And you know what? Like, I think the only person, at least in my opinion, to really almost come out okay
Summer.
was actually Summer.
Yep.
Yeah, she really put her back into it, and she
Yep.
really got into the role of being Lana
And
2.0, and
now,
like, yeah,
and now she and Breeze are broken up on SmackDown.
yeah. So I don't know
So
what Summer's
now
gonna do
they're
from
either
here.
going to completely forget that she even exists again, or the very, very optimistic and highly unlikely possibility she's going to get a singles push in the Divas division.
Which would be wonderful, but again, like you said, highly optimistic and probably not likely to happen.
Yeah.
But good luck. And you know what? Uh, to quote Heel R Truth, I mean, WWE should be booing themselves. They should be blaming
They
themselves
really should, because
for this worst storyline of the year.
this
This is what.
and the way that it started too, like the Rusev Lana breakup, I dug that. But then you immediately, within the same episode as the breakup, have Lana run into Ziggler's arms. So now we are kind of creating this sort of stereotype that Lana needs a man in her life.
Right. Yeah.
And
Just
that's already immediately, that's a negative stereotype for a woman to have. And then you go straight to, now they're making out in public, and PDAs have always been things that people get uncomfortable around, and especially when the two people have as little chemistry as Lana and Ziggler, and especially when you know for a fact that Lana and Rusev are a real life couple.
And that's what bothered me the most. Feuds like this that are this disastrous, or storylines, I should say, because this is the worst storyline of the year, are what happens when you try and bend reality to your whims.
This
You
is like
know?
Edge versus Matt Hardy done the wrong way.
Oh, completely the wrong way. It's like they saw the sign to get to a Matt Hardy Edge caliber kind of program, and they went the complete opposite direction.
Yep.
This was just heinous. And really, I'd say, given the reasons you mentioned, borderline offensive. Because even though I am legitimately happy for Lana and Rusev outside of kayfabe naturally, because the relationship is thriving, in kayfabe, Rusev was booked as like this brute, this, allegedly kind of abusive guy with the way he talked to Lana and the way he treat her. So now the reconciliation,
Yep.
that's sending the message that, oh, the abuse is okay. And clearly, in 2015, that's not a message you should want to be sending. And don't tell me you can't be better than WWE, because in the same year, if I'm not mistaken, because I think this was 2015, you had the Full Sail crowd chanting "No means no." That could have been 2014, though, to be
I think
fair.
that was 2014, and that was regarding Blake and Murphy and Carmella. No, that was this year, dude.
Yeah, and you are right, though. It was regarding Blake and Murphy and Carmella, but NXT.
Yeah.
So again, this is another time where the main roster should be taking NXT's lead in being that progressive, and yet here
And
I still feel like we're stuck in the dark ages.
of course, if the just pure awkwardness of it wasn't enough, when Lana and Rusev show back up on TV together, they get freaking just humiliated constantly, and Lana specifically gets slut shamed by Ryback.
Yeah, that was
I
not
heard you
cool.
went all the way with the Zig Man.
Huh, huh. And
And
just
and then Lana, not only does Lana not say anything about the slut shaming, but she proceeds to slut shame herself by saying that she's saving herself from marriage, implying that it's horrible to do anything else.
God, just everything about this is atrocious to
It
me.
really was. It really was.
Yeah.
This is the ultimate storyline that proves that Raw is written by a 70-year-old man.
Yes. Thank you. I think that's the perfect punctuation to this, because I can't even add anything to that. So would you be cool if we moved on?
Yeah, next, since that we both had the same one, and the last feud that we, or the last award that we didn't have the same thing for, was feud of the year, and I went first. So that one, I want you to go first for worst pay-per-view of the year.
Okay, my worst pay-per-view of the year, WWE Fastlane 2015.
That was the one that was between Royal Rumble and Mania.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so that was the show where we had Reigns, Bryan, and Bryan sucking his. Yeah, never mind.
Yeah, exactly. And you had also on this card that I didn't care for, Dean Ambrose versus Bad News Bear for the Intercontinental Championship, which ended up in a no contest. The best thing to come out of that was actually Dean Ambrose's Fallout promo about what the Intercontinental title means to him, which actually really makes me happy in hindsight that he's the current Intercontinental Champion. But yeah, between a match like that that got no finish and just seemed like awkward and bad, and then of course the big match, and here's the thing, and I may offend some people here, Bryan and Reigns didn't even belong in the ring together at this time. Bryan got eliminated in the Rumble so early. The only reason this happened was because of the fan backlash. And I
Yep.
don't even know why WWE gave into it because, and maybe it's just me, and maybe I'm wrong, but if I'm a company and I realize, oh, wow, this audience is really pissed that the guy they really love lost the Rumble so early, and a guy that they've turned on has won it, and he's going to Mania. Let's put them together so that Roman Reigns can really solidify his spot, and surely that'll get the guy over. Just made no sense to me. Like, what did you expect was going to happen? And
Yeah.
then from an act, what were we going to say?
No, I said yeah.
Yeah, and then from an actual match standpoint, the match itself wasn't bad, but I do have to bring up, I mean, Roman Reigns being the first guy to kick out of the knee plus from Bryan, and then Bryan couldn't even kick out of one spear.
Yep.
So you make the one guy look ridiculously strong, and yet the other guy,
Well, that's the guy that they need to make strong, though, John. You need to make Roman look strong.
exactly. You need to make Roman look really, really strong. And then Bryan can't even take one spear.
Yep.
And then the whole, kick his ass. I mean, I get what they were going for with Bryan giving the endorsement, trying to pump Reigns up. That's cool and everything. But again, like, this match had no basis for happening. And the idea that it main evented this pay per view, when quite honestly, looking back, Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns could have used all the help that it could have gotten, because let's all remember the go home Raw before Mania, that infamous segment. And
Yeah.
and you use this time in between to shoehorn Bryan in there, who I love to death, okay? I'm really feeling for him right now, what he's going through, but seriously, like, this was nothing but a product of fan service. Oh, we want Bryan at Mania. Made no sense whatsoever, and yeah, just all of that culminated in this being the worst pay-per-view of the year for me. So with that said, Ashton, I'm very curious what you picked as your worst pay-per-view of the year.
Just to kind of clarify, my runner-up for this was Hell in a Cell this year,
Okay.
because I just thought that was a horrible show, and I feel like Night of Champions was another one that was really bad. But my worst pay-per-view of the year wasn't even a WWE show, because AAA Triple Mania takes the cake, and it's not even close.
Yeah, I had a feeling,
My
when you
worst
touched
match, my
Triple H.
worst match of the year was on my worst pay-per-view of the year. It only fits.
Yeah, it really does. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
And
And
it's funny
now,
because I feel like right around the same time there was a CMLL show, and I don't think it was on the same night, but I know that right around the time of Triple Mania there was a CMLL show too that I watched at least the main event of, and I actually enjoyed that. So maybe we should look into CMLL, because from what I understand, that's also the promotion that has the Los Ingobernables faction that Naito is a part of.
right, right.
So we should probably check that out. But AAA is just not good at all.
Yeah, I'm so glad we don't cover that. That seems like ass. And again, like, I'm gonna mention AAA myself a little bit later in this award show, but yeah, I'm glad you brought it full circle. That show just sounds absolutely awful. So, with that said, should we move on to worst superstar of the year?
My worst superstar of the year is Alberto Del Rio.
Nice.
Just to clarify, this is Alberto Del Rio, not Alberto El Patron. Although, if we were including that, I still, El Patron was much better in Lucha Underground, but in AAA he was still terrible.
Yeah, AAA, he was still terrible. I hated that, he was in programs, at least from how briefly we watched AAA, where he was like the defender of Mexico, defending it
Yeah,
against, the Americans. And
that's
then,
that's my thing too. Like that's why I hated him so much for coming back to WWE, because his entire shtick in AAA was he is the face of not just AAA but of Mexico. Like he put
right.
himself on that pedestal that, like, if one of these dirty Americans comes into this country and tries to take, like, he was the John Cena of Mexico. Like with John Cena, anytime you get like a really well built up foreign heel, you know they're going to get fed to Cena. That's exactly what Del Rio was in Mexico, and then he jumped ship.
Yeah, exactly. Like, screw you guys. And I don't even know what happened with the championship, because I read one report where he like refused to drop it, or he
Yeah,
couldn't drop it or
well,
whatever.
yeah, there were like apparently they were supposed to make arrangements for him to be on a show where he could drop it, and WWE refused to let him.
Like, wow. Just horrible.
Yeah.
Absolutely horrible. And praise be to Johnny Mundo for getting that garbage out of Lucha Underground. I'm
Yes.
telling every chance I get to say it, I'm going to say it without fail. So praise
And
be to Johnny Mundo.
and just to be clear, this is worst superstar of the year, but if we really wanted it to be, it could also be worst person of the year in this case.
Yeah, really. Alberto Del Bitchbag, you suck.
Alberto Del Jobber.
My worst superstar of the year, and this would actually kind of pain me to do it, have to go with Kane. And
Yeah.
I say it
Well,
pains me to.
It's funny too because I feel like Kane, you could make an argument for him being the worst heel or the worst face of the year
Yeah, really.
because he was terrible in both roles. I mean, I think his most entertaining moment in recent memory was when he was concessions Kane, and I think that might have even been at the end of last year, or was that in the middle of this year?
I believe that was the middle of, or no, I think that was last year. I think
Yeah,
that was last year.
because that was entertaining, but it was also really stupid. So that's the kind of entertaining it was, and I feel like that's what Kane does best now too. Because like even before that, the best thing that he did was Team Hell No.
Exactly. You know, my thing with Kane is I respect him so much for being a veteran of the business. I do think, honestly, that he can be a good talker when given the right material and the right feud, and maybe he's like the right alignment. So it is a
You
lot of
know,
contingencies,
I
but
gotta tell you, man, my favorite Kane was the Kane that didn't talk.
yeah, yeah. I didn't grow up so much with that Kane, admittedly, because you know when I got started.
Yeah,
But
you started in like 0102, right?
yeah, I gotta tell you, my favorite Kane. Well, shouldn't say my favorite Kane because my favorite Kane was 2002 to like early 2004 Kane. That Kane, badass. But
Yeah.
a Kane that I
You
think is,
need to get exposed to 98 Kane because
but I think,
that was legendary. You
but
know
I
what?
think
We really do. We need to start like doing like what the OSW guys, the old school wrestling review guys do, and we need to start watching Attitude Era stuff that you haven't seen yet and reviewing shows from then.
I wouldn't be opposed to that. I
Leave a
think,
comment, people. Do you want to see that or not?
yeah, there you go. I think an underrated Kane would be his 2010 World Title reign because I thought the promos were excellent during that reign.
The
I thought
2010 year.
yeah, 2010
Yeah.
year. And then, so why I bring all this up is to show everybody, like, I don't hate Kane. Again, the
Right.
2002 2004 period, you
It's
could have
just the
called
way
me a
he
Kane
was
mark.
used this year that was junk
I think it's the way that he was used. And if I'm being honest, and I'm going to sound like an asshole, it's
in the
like,
ring.
you got to learn when to step back. And I think,
Well,
honestly, I've heard that Kane does want to step back, to be
yeah.
fair.
Well, and I've
I
heard the
just think
same thing about Big Show, but then he comes out on Monday Night Raw and say he's never retiring.
right. I just think I don't know if it's the financial security that he really wants because I've seen Kane give speaking engagements at like economic forums because he's a libertarian and stuff like that. You know, very intelligent, politically minded kind of guy. But I think this is like a stable source of income for him. I don't really mind him so much as like that kind of authority kind of role, the director of operations. And I'll be honest, the Jekyll and Hyde stuff he started to do in his feud with Rollins was interesting, but man, did that mileage get used up quick.
Yeah, at first I loved how he would put on like the smiley face for Steph and Triple H and that kind of stuff. But then, like when they brought the psychologist in and she was like, "No, Kane's normal. Rollins, you're paranoid and terrible." Like that was just
Exactly.
so stupid.
Exactly. I just, call it mishandling, call it just knowing when to hang it up. But to me, Kane, I respect the hell out of him, but this was not his year. I just wanted him to go away. I groaned with the stuff that he did in the video. I mean, you come out of an ambulance after your leg got,
And
kind of
he just
there,
stomping on the ground.
and you stop it on the ground, and then the sound effect to put it back on. This is how, again, you know that this is a fucking kid show that we're watching.
70
We're
year old man writes this.
70-year-old man writes this, and it's a goddamn kids show that two
Yep.
guys in their 20s are watching. Like,
Yep.
I'm almost embarrassed for myself when you put it in that context.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
why I said we got to go back and watch some old Attitude Era stuff because I feel like Attitude Era and Ruthless Aggression were more targeted at people in our demographic.
exactly.
I know for a fact that Attitude Era was straight up designed for college kids to watch. Like that's no question.
Oh, and by the way, since this is probably the most appropriate time I'll ever get to say it, fuck Demon Kane. It's just Kane. I
Yeah.
don't need to hear Demon Kane every other second, you idiots.
Demon Kane.
It's Demon Kane. Shut the hell up. If I could reach to the TV and eviscerate your vocal cords, I would. It's
Well,
not
I think
Demon Kane.
everybody
It's
says that about Michael Cole and JBL on a weekly basis, though. That's nothing
well,
new with the Demon
well,
Kane thing.
then here's the thing, then, right? If that's the case, take the fucking hint.
Yeah,
Jesus Christ!
yeah.
Like, it's not
I'm pretty
Demon
sure that
Kane.
if we had a worst commentator of the year award, it would be a tie.
And you know what? I don't even know if I can blame them because if Vince is constantly
It's
feeding them
Vince,
lines,
yeah.
good lord,
Because
he should.
you can even like watch Beast in the East, and Michael Cole was great on that show.
I that's what I've been here. I don't think I've ever gone back to Beast of the East to listen to the commentary because we did live reactions the first
Yeah,
time around. But I heard his commentary was excellent, and just that whole distinction, like, man, thank goodness that we have YouTube and the internet to like solidify certain moments and everything. Because I go back to when Kane was a badass, and my heart weeps, dude. Go give your lectures, preach to the masses, write your blogs. Just enjoy that next part of your life. I feel like he has nothing more he can really contribute to the wrestling business. If I'm being honest,
Yeah,
nobody I could think that he could put over. Nothing I think that he could do. He didn't need to feud with Rollins. Rollins did not need to feud with Kane. So I can't think of anybody that he can work with or whatever. And really, to me, it's with a heavy heart that I say, yeah, he's my worst superstar of the year. But I've really belabored that point. So Ashton, I'm curious. Or wait, did you give your worst superstar of the year? Because now I'm
yeah.
kind of lost. You
It was
did.
Del
That's right.
Rio.
Upper Tell Bitch Bag. That's right. That's right. So
Yeah. So now we can move on, and John, you get to go first this time. Worst promo of the year.
I'm so glad we had that preceding discussion because I have some residual anger for this. And it's perfect too because I'm so pissed. John Cena's retort to Kevin Owens promo where John Cena makes fathers look bad. And what I put in parentheses why this was my worst promo of the year. This is where Cena singled out a fan with cancer on the show.
Yeah, that was really just purely
Fuck you,
shameless.
dude. Fuck
Yeah.
you. I told you I had some residual anger for this. Here is Kevin Owens, right? Now, again, I'm probably going to make some controversial remarks in this video. I probably already did, to be fair. I feel like Kevin Owens, for me, cut a CM Punk level promo here because his justification and his reasoning for why he needs to beat John Cena and why this feud needs to be a thing, I thought was masterful. Because it's like I'm a father. I was busy busting my ass, building stability for my family because I'm a father. Damn it! And you know what? What happened? My son didn't get to grow up with me. My son didn't get to look at me as the hero. Who was the hero? John Cena. It's not his fault. He's just a kid. He even told that to the crowd who was booing his son. So even out in kayfabe, he defends his family. So buy the T-shirt when it comes out. But yeah, just saying, he wanted to provide for his family. He wanted to be good, and yet his son grew up on John Cena, and that's an affliction a lot of fathers face. And he actually got support for that. And then John Cena has to come out. Let me tell you something, Kevin. What I do for everybody in this arena, and I do for that kid battling cancer. Screw you, dude. Screw you. I don't know. Maybe it's just me, because to get personal for a second, I have my own disabilities and my own struggles, and I hate being singled out for anything positive when you don't know me. So, it just really bothered me that Cena's like, hey, that kid's sick. I can use that kid to get myself over and look like a great guy. You're not a great guy. You're a douche.
And
And
specifically, you exploit people.
exactly. And it's funny because I'm going to talk about John Cena more positively, later in the video, but I just have to get the negative out here. This retort was garbage. And you know what this retort showed me? And again, maybe this is just the anger talking, but on this particular night, with this particular promo, you could not hang with Kevin Owens. You could not have a reasonable retort to what he was saying, so you had to stoop to that level. And to me, you took Kevin Owens' masterful work and man, did you drag it down. So yeah, this is my worst promo of the year by far, dude. By far.
Wow.
So what do you got?
Well, we have very different kinds of worst promos of the year. Yours is just because, I mean, it was relatively well done. You just hate what it stood for.
Exactly.
Mine was just horrible, just flat out bad. Specifically, it's actually not even just one promo; it's multiple promos. I wanted to group them all together, and my worst promo of the year is anytime Charlotte is on Miz TV or in the vicinity of her father with a mic in her hand.
Oh my god, you're so right. Oh god, Charlotte, where do we even start? You know what? This
And
is
you know what?
yours
I
now.
can't even say that. My worst promo of the year is just Charlotte in general. Because even like the contract signing with Paige, she was terrible.
Yeah, this was not her year. It's funny. Of all the NXT women that came up to the main roster, I can't even really say that Becky had the weakest showing because at least she still kept that likable personality. Charlotte, to me, just tanked this year
Yeah,
coming up to the main roster.
yeah.
And can I just say, I don't want to poke fun at her, but I find it hilarious that your award for that was pretty much her name. Just Charlotte was worst promo of the year.
Well,
That
because I
shows
can't
you how bad it
pick
was.
one specifically. Like she's like they're all just that bad.
I know, dude. I know. It really was. I mean, I can't even think of one good showing she had on the mic. I was really fearing that they were going to rely heavily on her last name, on the main roster. I mean, to be fair, they kind of did it in NXT, but I feel like it wasn't overbearing, and she was actually still able to have somewhat of her own identity a little bit. Main roster, screw that. It was just, oh, she's a Flair. Just everything about it was awful, and yeah, her mic work was just horrendous. So
Well,
I can't even blame
let's
her for
just
that.
put it this way. In NXT, they started her with really strongly associating her with her dad, and her first big match, she had Ric Flair in her corner. Now, granted, Natalya also had Bret Hart in her corner, so they kind of made a thing out of it, but after that, Charlotte never really even referred to her father. The closest she ever got to referring to having a famous father or having a wrestling father was her whole genetically superior shtick that she did.
Exactly. And I like that because that was a nod to where she comes from without just explicitly being like, I'm a Flair, or whatever. Yeah, did not care for her promos at all this year. And you bringing up that contract signing, which is such a shame too, because let us not forget that was the main event segment of the go home show
Yeah,
before Survivor
that
Series.
was the last thing that people who only watch Raw saw before the pay per view. And it was
Exactly.
freaking Survivor Series, too. One of the big four.
Well, you know what? That's been under debate for years now, and I think
Yeah,
the idea that they let this segment go on last kind of settles that
right.
debate. WWE doesn't look at this as a Big Four pay per view
Right.
anymore.
I mean,
Yeah,
to me, if you're going to replace Survivor Series in the big four, it would almost have to be Money in the Bank, right?
yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah,
Because just
completely.
nothing happens between SummerSlam and Royal Rumble.
Yeah, no.
And we knew that, so that's why we didn't review Raws in that time this year.
And
That
if
was the best decision I think we've ever made,
it
honestly.
it's been so good for my health. You have no idea, people. Uh,
Best decision we ever made was moving TWitWoW to YouTube. Second best was not reviewing Raw in the fall.
exactly. And if I could give Charlotte some advice for making her promos better in 2016, stop crying all the time. I think she started cutting back on it, but
Well, and
man,
that's the
like
thing too, is even when she's not crying, when she's trying to be serious, she gets this really indignant tone about her too, which is just the worst. Like when frickin' Paige said something about how like Becky Lynch was irrelevant, she was like, "Don't you talk to her that way." Like, whose mother do you think you are?
your tone there was perfect. It's like she had these fluctuations. Oh, Charlotte.
Yeah, that's just how bad she is, though.
You know what? I know we joked about it a lot with Reigns and with her, but she really is a product of nepotism. Because I think if you would have taken
I
anybody else with her exact
I
skill set
think
and
that
everything,
she and Reigns have the same problem. It's like they went to an acting class but left halfway through.
exactly.
They only learned how to be big and over the top, and they didn't learn subtlety.
Yeah, and that's it. That's not even necessarily say again that they're bad, but in the case of Charlotte, it's just
Well,
you
Charlotte's
needed more
bad.
work.
Charlotte is
Well,
bad.
well, I was gonna say she needed more work, and I feel like they hotshot her when she wasn't ready again
Yeah,
because
because of
she's
her
a
name.
Flair.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and we knew that was going to happen.
I know, I know.
Back in like I think April or May when WrestleMania was over and I was making my fantasy SummerSlam card, I had Charlotte versus Stephanie McMahon because I knew that they would want to use Charlotte's name recognition to get the women over because that was going to be their whole thing was like if we need to get these divas on the map and we want people to start paying attention to them, we need to give them something that they can latch onto. And immediately their first thought goes to the Flair name.
Exactly. Unbelievable.
So up next, we are going to do our worst heel of the year. And John, I apologize for kind of stepping on a toe here. I know I'm doing that. So we'll both kind of talk about this together. My worst heel of the year is the Bella Twins together.
Yes, and you know what? At least that makes it slightly distinct because I'm sure you said that because you know that my worst heel of the year was Nikki Bella.
Right. And we can
Um,
both just talk about how awful they are. And specifically, Nikki really is the worst offender, but Brie is pretty terrible as a heel too because she doesn't really try to be a heel at all.
exactly, and you know that, and that's my exact criticism of Nikki Bella. Like both the Bellas don't know how to commit,
Yep.
and
And
like
it's
that's
the
a
same
problem.
problem we have with Eva Marie and with Dana Brooke. It's that they're supposed to be bad guys. They're supposed to get booed. And yet the only reason people boo them is because of how bad they are. And there are people that cheer them because they try to get they try to make people their fans. Like they try to be good guys. Nikki Bella talks about how she's fearless, and that's a completely different story for another day. And like Brie Bella uses her ultimate babyface husband's freaking signature move in the ring. And then like Dana Brooke with her talking about how hard she's worked to get here, and Eva Marie doing kind of the same thing. Those four women all really like I want to like everybody in wrestling. I really do. But when you don't understand what being a heel is, you need to work on it. And the Bella twins have been around long enough that they should freaking know better.
Yeah, and that's precisely the problem, dude. That is precisely the problem because when you've been around as long as these two have, and in my case, I just singled out Nikki here, like, come on, girl. It's
And this
Wrestling
is part of
101.
why I couldn't stand the Miz's run up to WrestleMania. I think in 2011 it was because like he was supposed to be this dastardly heel and he cheated in all of his matches and stuff, and yet he would come out and cut these like borderline inspirational promos about how he worked his way up from the bottom and no one believed that he would ever make it and that kind of stuff. Like, dude, try and make people hate you. Don't try and make them believe in you and see you as an inspiration.
Exactly.
And
Like,
that's
say,
exactly what the Bella Twins do. They talk about how, oh, 8 years ago we only ever were on Raw if it was with a special guest Raw GM, and now look how far we've come. I'm a Divas champion. I'm the longest reigning Divas champion. Like, okay, that might be true, and maybe you can use that in like a shoot interview or like a website interview that's out of kayfabe. But as far as kayfabe goes, you need to be a bitch.
exactly. And I do have to blame the WWE corporate machine a little bit as well for that because look, we all know the distinction between kayfabe and non-kayfabe,
Yeah.
but it doesn't mean that you have to be so explicit about it on your product.
And
Like,
especially when they show like charity drives that the Bellas are a big part of.
yes.
Like we
Yes.
get that Nikki is with John Cena, but they keep them separate on Raw for a reason. Why would you not keep them separate in your video packages as well?
Exactly. Like, of course, I don't think that Nikki is this heartless monster. Of course, I know that she's a human being too and she does good things. I don't need to see it on the TV, though, when you're trying to construct a narrative where she is the villain.
Yeah.
And, again, going back to the original point, she doesn't even play the villain because it's like, oh, well, I'm a real woman and I work hard and you're not going to beat me and I'm fearless. And it's like, Wrestling 101, don't you know how to be a heel? It's not that hard.
Yeah.
And I think the only reason she took it, dude, was because, again, she was the longest reigning Divas champion. She had the title, and, we had to deal with her so much, being the champion. So, yeah, worst heel of the year for me. And obviously, you as well with the Bellas. They were just awful. I just
Yeah.
honestly think they're awful in general because when they're face, to me, like, it just feels inauthentic. I feel a disconnect. And then they can't even connect or commit, I should say, to being heel. So it's just horrible all around.
They just feel like inauthentic baby faces no matter what they try and do.
Exactly.
Like
Exactly.
if they're supposed to be heels, they still come off as trying to be inauthentic baby faces, and when they're baby faces, they literally just are inauthentic baby faces.
Exactly.
It's that simple. So now that we've talked about them enough, let's move on to, and I'm going to go first for this one since that last one was a tie, and the worst promo of the year, you went first. Worst face of the year, and this ties right into worst promo of the year for me because I chose Charlotte.
Oh, well, I chose Charlotte as well. So that's
Oh,
another one we
another
tied on.
tie. Okay,
Another
wow.
time.
That's funny. Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. I said earlier we could have picked Kane for either one of these, but to me, with Charlotte, the biggest problem is that I don't think she understands what being a face means. And if she does, I feel like the WWE doesn't understand that you're not going to be able to pull off the Ric Flair style babyface unless you've established yourself as Ric freaking Flair beforehand.
Exactly. That's just it. Like, because I've seen Ric Flair as a babyface, both when he had his Intercontinental title run, I believe, in '07, and that feud with Triple H. And you know why it worked? Because to your point, he was Ric freaking Flair. Like, that's how you could get behind it. When you travel along with somebody, when you know who they are, you feel that connection with them through thick and thin, no matter if they're dastardly or they try and be good, be that babyface. Charlotte hasn't had that kind of career yet.
Right.
So to me,
So
for her,
it just comes off as her being an entitled jerk.
exactly. And who else do we call an entitled jerk? I mean, let's be honest, Natalia,
Roman Reigns.
Roman Reigns, and I feel like Charlotte is right up there. To me, yeah, just a horrible babyface. I can get into it a little bit more now that it seems that she's trying to commit being a heel, and I'm actually intrigued by a potential program with her and Becky Lynch. But man, did it take them long enough? Because I couldn't buy into it for a second. Much like the Bellas when they try and be good, even though they're heels earlier. Charlotte to me as a babyface just always felt uncomfortable, always felt awkward. I'll be honest too, even though it's none of my business. I didn't always like the invoking of her family, her brother Reed and everything. I'm like, okay, we get it, I understand it, but
Yeah,
after a
when are we going
while,
to get to see Soraya Knight on here so that Paige can invoke her family too?
exactly, exactly. And yeah, man, just Charlotte was a horrible babyface, and really, to put it quite aptly, the worst babyface of the year this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And just because I forgot to mention it, my worst heel of the year, I also um, I wanted to toss Jay Lethal in there just because he's not actually a heel. Like the only really dastardly thing he ever does is not even him doing it. It's Truth Martini.
Yeah,
He
that's true.
wins. He wins almost all of his matches clean now. So like the fact that you're trying to book him as this top heel and he's winning all these matches clean just doesn't connect.
Yeah, and that makes perfect sense. I
And
can
also
understand
my
where you're coming
runner-up for worst face of the year, Mojo Rawley, because Go Away.
Oh God, yeah, that's so true. He's awful.
But the
He's
good
so
thing
bad.
about him, at least, is that we really only see him like twice a month max.
Yeah, that's true.
And even
Whereas,
then, like he wasn't around for a few months, so it wasn't even all year that we've seen him.
right,
Whereas with
right.
Charlotte, she's been around all year, and she was even a horrible face in NXT. Like talking down to the crowd and stuff.
Yeah, it's like don't interrupt someone who's
The
genetically
Queen,
superior. Yeah, don't
Queen,
interrupt the
yeah,
queen. Yeah, I don't get it.
yeah.
She's awful. She needs a lot of work.
All
And
right. Well,
yeah.
since we've agreed on the last two, I'll try and go first this time. Hopefully, we don't agree again. Worst finish of the year. My pick, and I actually, now that I think about it, I don't think we do agree on this one. My pick for worst finish of the year was the Undertaker Brock Lesnar SummerSlam match because you have Taker tapping out on Lesnar's leg. The freaking timekeeper rings the bell. The referee, I think it was Charles Robinson, has no clue what's going on. Taker with the low blow and then the Gogo Plata, and Lesnar with the middle finger and then passes out. Just way too convoluted. And if you wanted to make Taker look like a heel, first of all, that's a terrible idea because the crowd's just not going to boo him. And second of all, there are a lot less convoluted ways to do it than this. You could have had
Yeah.
you could have had Lesnar or Taker throw the ref out of the ring and then hit
Yeah.
the low blow. Like there are other ways to distract or get rid of a ref for a brief period of time before you can hit a low blow than having this retarded suddenly now the timekeeper is allowed to determine when a match is over sort of thing added to our already dangling by a thread suspension of disbelief.
Yeah, I mean, you had the perfect word right out of the gate, convoluted. Like,
Yeah.
this whole thing was a mess. And it's a shame, too, because the match as a whole, up until the finish, I actually liked it. I felt like it was actually their best encounter in terms of the feud. I felt like they put a lot of effort in there. I enjoyed the story because, Taker was salty about his streak being ended, and they really brought Taker's age and just the idea that his career really is winding down to the forefront, and Brock Lesnar's this beast. So, like, all the narrative elements were there. I mean, the people, the performers, obviously. I mean, what more can you say? It's Undertaker and Brock Lesnar. Everything was smooth sailing, but that finish, man, was just awful. So I completely agree with you. That was a horrid, horrid finish. I did take a little bit of a different route, though. Johnny Mundo versus Alberto El Patron from Triple A. It was for the Triple A Championship. I know you told me in Skype how to pronounce this show name, but I forget already. It was Heroes Immortales 9.
Yeah,
Uh,
Héroes Inmortales 9. Yeah.
Héroes Immortales
Yeah,
9.
well, it's Spanish, so you can't pronounce the H, and E's always sound like A, and then O's always sound like O rather than like ah.
Right.
And so yeah,
So yeah, this finish. I mean, to me, first of all, this show proved, like this whole match proved, yeah, Lucha Underground definitely does it better
oh my
because
God, yes.
both both the Johnny Mundo versus Alberto El Patron matches from Lucha Underground for me were some of my favorite matches of 2015. And then you get AAA that has to do the booking with these two guys who can work together well because you've already freaking seen it
And they were putting on a decent match until the finish.
until the finish because you had the ref bump and then you have Mundo. I think
Cage.
you had Cage come in there, and then Patron's got Mundo in the cross arm breaker, but then Mundo has the guitar and he hits Patron in the head with the guitar. So then you think, oh great, he's gonna make the cover because nobody saw it, and then the referee he starts to count. And then decides midway through, oh, I'm gonna throw the match out. Sorry, Patron wins.
This is some like 2001 WCW shit. Not even
Like,
joking.
all of my hate.
Yeah.
It's not even the fact that Johnny Mundo once again wrongly got screwed out of a championship.
But that has something to do with it.
Well, it'll always have something to do with it because my salt levels, though. But more importantly, and more seriously than that, one day, but more seriously than that, like, either throw the match out immediately because you knew something was up, or just complete the count. That's what I think really got me was that he started the count and then he looks at Mundo like, you know what? He even had that look on his face too, like he was proud of it. Like, no, I'm gonna mess your shit up. Screw you. And then I'm just thinking, oh my god, don't you do it? And then they did it. The match ended in a no contest. I mean, you want to talk about confusion all over the place, and then a big brawl happened, and then Patron cut this
And
promo.
then Patron left the company.
And then Patron left the company. So once again, I say, praise be to Johnny Mundo. I'm
You
so
know,
glad
dude,
you put your hands
yeah,
through.
yeah, I could be wrong, but I think that was actually the last main event that he was a part of.
Yeah, yeah. So way to have a stinker on the way out. But but yeah, man, I just too. I mean, I hate to even give Patron this credit, but when he's invested, I'll put that caveat because man, he looks so dispirited in WWE right now.
And
But
he
when
did
he's
at the end of his last run, too. I don't know why he even bothered going back. Like, how much money did they pay him for him to come back?
apparently enough.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, this finish was just awful, and I'm just glad. I mean, the probably one of the most negative awards because you're talking like the finish is what everybody remembers about a matchup,
Yeah.
more or less. And yeah, these finishes that we both have were just heinous.
All
So
right, guys, it's time to switch gears. John, do you want to make two videos out of this? You want me to cut off the recording here and then we can upload the worst and then we can make a separate video for the best, or do you just want to keep going?
you know what? Separate video sounds good. I think it'll be easier for our audience to digest and comment on and give their feedback. So I'm
All
down with
right.
that.
All right, guys. Well, this was the worst of the year. Let us know what you think in the comments down below. If you enjoyed our salt levels at all of the worst things that happened in wrestling this year, which is pretty much exclusively, I almost said monopolized, but when it's two companies, it can't be monopolized. Pretty much exclusively taken up by WWE and AAA. So I think we know what companies didn't do so well this year, right?
Yeah, you're damn right.
All right, guys, let us know what you think. If you enjoyed our saltiness, give us a like. Otherwise, we will see you for our best of the year, which will hopefully be a much more enjoyable and hopefully even lighthearted conversation. And also maybe like 5 times as long, which this is almost an hour. So, yeah.